friends, in today's video we're going to talk about why Russia began military build-up near Ukraine and what it wants from West. Friends, at the heart of the current crisis between Russia and Ukraine is NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is a group of 30 countries including the US, UK, France and Germany. Actually, friends, Ukraine wants to join this group of which the United States, the arch-rival of Russia, is a part. The NATO too is open to make Ukraine its member, which has irked the Moscow big time. Russia doesn't want NATO to allow Ukraine to become its member, as it will expand the grouping's footprint to its border. The other big reason is that a member country of NATO will be eligible for collective support by all members in case of any external attack. Friends, Kyiv fears attack by Russia, as the latter has already annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Brookings, a US-based think tank, writes that Moscow's seizure of Crimea was the biggest land grab in Europe since World War II. Welcome to our channel KAAL, The History, where we apprise you of the important historical events which one should certainly know, along with the ancient, medieval and the modern history, in order to enhance your knowledge. But before we move on, I request you to kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for the latest updates. As per the principle of collective defense, NATO considers an attack against one or several of its members as an attack against all. This is the principle of collective defense, which is enshrined in Article 5 of the Washington Treaty. Friends, this is why Russia opposes NATO membership to Ukraine. It thinks that if Ukraine becomes member of NATO, it might try to take back Crimea by military actions. President Putin recently hinted at such situation if Ukraine becomes part of NATO. Let's imagine Ukraine is a NATO member and starts these military operations. Are we supposed to go to war with the NATO bloc? Has anyone given that any thought? Apparently not, he said. Russia therefore is demanding the West to pull NATO forces out of Eastern Europe and never expand into Ukraine. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei has said that for Russia, it's absolutely mandatory to ensure Ukraine never ever becomes a member of NATO. Russia recently shared draft documents on legal security guarantees from the US and NATO. Article 4 of the agreement states that the Russian Federation and all the parties that were member states of NATO as of 27 May 1997 respectively shall not deploy military forces and weaponry on the territory of any other states in Europe in addition to the forces stationed on the territory as of 27 May 1997. Friends, Article 6 of the document also says all member states of the NATO commit themselves to refrain from any further enlargement of NATO, including the accession of Ukraine as well as other states. What if World War III happened? Friends, human history has been full of battles and wars, some big and some small. But if World War III were to happen, it might be humanity's biggest battle yet. Advanced technology, massive troops and more intensive strategy would all be involved. Why would something like this happen? What countries would join in and how would this war be fought? Well, friends, people have talked about a possible World War III for decades. It almost started in the 1960s during the Cold War between Russia and the United States, but thankfully we managed to avoid that. But let's say we aren't lucky enough to avoid it next time. When might World War III happen? Well, it's tough to say. A world war could start due to prominent political figures getting killed, intelligence threats, or fighting over valuable resources. Talking about it like this makes the chances of a war happening sound likely. But the chances are actually a lot lower than you might think, because since 1945 the world has seen many different battles: Vietnam, Afghanistan and dozens of different civil wars. We should keep in mind that in order for a world war to happen, it needs to involve the entire world. And the structure of the world has changed even more since 1945. Countries simply aren't as closely allied as they used to be. Militaries are even more skilled and stronger than they were. Most likely, friends, millions of people would die and the earth would take decades, if not centuries, to recover, especially with some of the weapons and tools countries would be using in today's age. Soldiers on the ground might have exoskeletons. Friends, there are metal frames around the soldier's body that augment their strength. Although this probably won't turn them into Robocop, it would make it easier for soldiers to carry heavy equipment over long distances. Weapons that can bend around corners may also be a possibility. And instead of seeing the war fought in the sea or the sky, it could actually be fought in space. Militaries could fight over weaponized satellites that could affect what's below them. Friends, although a lot of this stuff sounds like something out of sci-fi movie, we should keep in mind that these weapons are scary and hopefully no one will ever need to use them. After all, things like this are meant to kill people. Friends, but there may not be many soldiers on the ground. The war of the future might be fought on computers, drones, artificial intelligence, and robots could be the only things on the battlefield. But there's also a chance that acts of war in the future might not involve any violence at all. Hacking into other countries' computers, as well as power grid shutdowns, are all a possibility. But what would this war be about anyway? Well, some people predict it could have to do with resources, specifically water, since fresh water is such a scarce, yet valuable resource. Nations may begin to fight over it as it continues to deplete. But hopefully, friends, this war won't go on forever. So how could it end? Well, one reason, and a main reason why a world war hasn't happened yet, has to do with these things. During World War II, the United States dropped nuclear bombs on Japan, killing over 100,000 people. The cities involved took decades to recover. The two nukes used in World War II would pale in comparison to the modern nukes we have today. And by the way, there are nearly 14,000 nuclear warheads around the world. Some are held by America, Russia, China, and other countries. A nation can have all the resources, people, and strategy they want, but if a nuke gets dropped on them, then it's game over. And if one country drops a nuke, what's to stop another country from doing the same, and then another, and soon the world would be destroyed. So who would win this war? Absolutely no one. A full-on World War III would have a massive impact on the world as a whole. It's safe to say that the world would never be the same. But try not to lose sleep over this. After all, a third world war like this, with dozens of countries involved, is incredibly unlikely to start tomorrow. If two countries get into a fight, it's more like that countries that aren't directly involved will stay that way and let the other nations fight for themselves. But wars are terrible. Let us try to avoid them. So if you really like this video, I request you to kindly share this with your friends and your loved ones. Keep smiling and take care. Welcome to our channel called The History, where we apprise you of the important historical events which one should certainly know, along with the ancient, medieval and the modern history in order to enhance your knowledge. But before we move on, I request you to kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for the latest updates.